Hey squad, GooberTroy here, and I can barely contain my excitement for Biomutant, which releases on May 25th of this year. In case you haven't heard, Biomutant is an upcoming post-apocalyptic open-world RPG developed by Experiment 101. In this game, you will play as a mutant from one of the various tribes within the game, utilizing various combat techniques and abilities to fight your way toward the main goal, the World Tree. I am a massive fan of these types of games, and because of that, I wanted to break down 6 reasons why I think you should be excited for Biomutant. The first reason is, of course, the combat. In general, the combat looks like it's going to be relatively fast-paced, with lots of enemies utilizing various attacks. This means combat will likely be somewhat strategic, where you'll need to discern which enemies are your biggest threat and focus them down first. As for the actual fighting, the game looks fluid and balanced, with the character seamlessly switching between melee and ranged combos. In fact, the combat seems inspired by the Devil May Cry series, mixing in melee and gun combat. But melee weapons and ranged weapons aren't the only thing you'll be using in your arsenal. Your mutant will be able to learn active skills, which can further amplify the combat experience. These skills can be used in a combo to create some flashy and very feel-good experiences. The final note on combat is one I think many people enjoy, and that aspect is bullet time. From the looks of it, your mutant has an ability called Super Wung Fu, which while active, slows down time around you, allowing you to unleash some massive combos on your opponents. But let's move on to our second reason why you should be excited, and that reason is crafting. This game's crafting system looks like it will keep players coming back for more. From the early looks of it, crafting has a lot of depth. Rarity isn't something that necessarily deems a weapon as hard to find, rather it dictates the overall strength of a weapon. For example, an item might have a base rarity of just 1 star, but as you craft modifications and apply them to your gear, the rarity will increase. Not all gear you find will be equipable, however. Some gear has level requirements or attribute requirements. I'm guessing for the gear that you can't use or have no intention of using, there's some form of scrapping or recycling so that you can provide materials for future gear pieces and modifications. One thing I find interesting is loot chance appears to be tied to an attribute, where increasing this attribute correlates to higher quality gear you'll find in the open world. Fextralife has an excellent video on the intricacies of crafting and does an awesome job explaining some of those finer details. In case you haven't seen it, the link to their video is in the description below. Speaking of exploration, that brings us to our third reason why you should be excited, and that is for the sense of adventure. The world of Biomutant looks massive. There will be several different biomes for us to explore, which keep things fresh. In addition, these biomes may have environmental hazards you must prepare for. For example, if your gear doesn't have a lot of radiation protection, and you enter a biome with lots of radiation, then, well, you're gonna have a bad time. You have to prepare for the exploration, which gives more of a sense of a grand expedition. Continuing on with how massive the world looks, we have mounts to help us get around. Some of these mounts look interesting, and I wonder if they'll have any special attributes, such as, faster travel time in certain biomes. On a more minor note, there are also gliders, which make aerial travel easier. This might also make for some unique combat opportunities where you can get the jump on your enemies. But moving on to our fourth reason is the character design. When you create your character, you will go through 3 different processes. The first of which is you must select the breed. I believe the breed will be used more to determine your starting location and some of the status resistances. Other than that, it shouldn't have any major impact on how your character develops stat-wise. Once you've selected your breed, you will then select your class. While there are classes, this does not lock you into a certain playstyle. These classes are more for your early game stat distribution and your starting equipment. Think something along the lines of the Dark Souls character creator. Basically, you will have complete freedom to allocate your stats however you see fit, allowing you to pivot to different playstyles as necessary. After you've selected a class, you will get a chance to allocate attributes fitting your desired playstyle. One of my favorite things is how when you allocate your attributes, it will influence your character's visuals. For example, if you have a high intellect, your head will actually be bigger. It's just a small touch, but it lets you get that much more attached to your character. For our fifth reason is the art style. Visually, I think this game is absolutely stunning. I'm really not a visual person, but in the case of Biomutant, I can't help but get captivated by all the colors. While the colors are vibrant, they don't feel overwhelming. From the trailers I've seen, there's not really any blending going on, so like, enemies aren't like hard to see while in combat. And this is important when the combat is very fast paced and you're trying to discern where an enemy is. One aspect of the game I absolutely adore, but I'm sure a lot of people are going to be turned off from, is the cartoonish combat text. I'm not sure if these happen randomly or maybe on like Critical Strike or something like that, but I think they just work really well with this art style and type of game. However, if this isn't something that you're particularly a fan of, I'm sure there's going to be a way to disable it. Moving on to our final reason to be excited is the confirmation of New Game Plus. For those who really want a challenge, the developers have confirmed a New Game Plus mode, which means you'll be able to play through the game using your current character and gear to fight against tougher enemies. I think this is a great way to increase the longevity of the game. One thing I'm curious about though is whether or not New Game Plus will have better or different gear than the first playthrough. Biomutant is a game that I've had on my radar for quite some time now. I'm super excited that this game is finally releasing after such a long development cycle, but I'm glad it's taken this long because things really look polished. But I want to know what you think. Are there some other aspects of the game that you're most excited for? Or are there any concerns you might have with the game? For more Biomutant content in the future, such as guides, tips, and gameplay, consider leaving a like and subscribing to the channel. For a small channel like mine, it really helps me grow and is so much appreciated. But I'm GooberTroy from Squad Up Games, reminding you to squad up and have fun.